Diddy Combs' federal sex trafficking trial continued today with more testimony from his girlfriend, Cassie Ventura.
This time, defense attorneys questioned her about texts that she and the rapper exchanged during their relationship. We do want to warn you, the video and the testimony is disturbing.
Here's Fox News correspondent C.B. Cotton from New York.
The ex-girlfriend of disgraced music mogul Sean Diddy Combs returning to the stand in his federal sex trafficking trial. Under cross-examination, defense attorneys read sexually explicit messages between Cassie Ventura and Combs as part of their argument that Cassie willingly participated in the rapper's so-called freak-offs, though she testified that their relationship was complicated.
They have a couple different angles that they can go with, the defense, right? They can say that she was jealous. They can say that she was, this was consensual, that she was essentially willing to subject herself to this for a lavish lifestyle.
On Wednesday, Cassie told prosecutors that she underwent therapy and even considered taking her own life when the relationship ended. Jurors have seen disturbing surveillance video of Combs assaulting Cassie in 2016 during what she says was a drug-fueled sex party and leaving her with a black eye. Diddy apologized when part of that video was released last year. Prosecutors claim Combs ran a criminal enterprise through his business empire, where he and his associates engaged in sex trafficking and forced labor. He pleaded not guilty to the charges. His defense attorneys say while there was domestic violence in Diddy's relationships, any sexual acts were consensual.
They can't minimize that for fear of alienating the jury, but they have to take this and distinguish it from RICO and racketeering cases and conspiracy for prostitution, crossing state lines for the purpose of prostitution.
Combs' trial is expected to last anywhere from 8 to 10 weeks. In New York, C.B. Cotton, Fox News.
Here in Georgia, renewed hope for survivors of domestic violence who fought back against their accusers.
Governor Brian Kemp signed the bill this week, allowing women who are incarcerated to ask for shorter sentences if their charges stem from domestic violence. Fox 5's Alexa Liaco is here to explain how this law works. And Alexa, this could potentially help women who are currently in prison.
Yeah, not only women who are currently incarcerated, but also women who are already out on parole. So giving a lot of hope to a lot of people here that they could see their sentences shortened, their parole shortened, because finally a woman's history of abuse can be considered in cases where women only tried to defend themselves and their children.
I didn't really want to hurt him. I just didn't want to be hurt again either.
Even after enduring years of physical and emotional abuse, LaToya Dickens never imagined defending herself and her children would land her in prison. She stabbed her husband once to try and get away from him, but her abuse was not considered in court. She was sentenced 25 years for felony murder. She's finally back home with her family, but is still on parole. But the new law signed by Governor Kemp this week may give her her first chance for true freedom.
I hope that this is a door opener to getting my case maybe reviewed and maybe take the felony murder off of my record so I can potentially come off parole.
The Georgia Justice Survivor Act will now allow women to introduce evidence of abuse into court so their sentence reflects the abuse they endured. And the Georgia Coalition Against Domestic Violence found that between 74 and 95% of women who are incarcerated have experienced domestic or sexual violence. So this law has the potential to help nearly every woman currently behind bars. The nonprofit Women on the Rise wants to make sure every woman who can be helped knows her rights.
This law now says we will recognize that you are in an abusive relationship, that you were trying to survive, and will not criminalize you for doing that.
Advocates hope this law will lower the prison population and give women a second chance, one that could have changed Brittany Smith's life.
I most definitely would not have ended up incarcerated, and I was pregnant at that time, so I wouldn't have to have spent half my pregnancy in the county jail either. So even though it's not something that can be retroactively changed in my life, I'm happy that going forward a lot of women won't experience what I did experience.
And it will help those on parole. Dickens and her attorneys are now planning to go back to court.
I would love to have my full freedom back where I can do more for myself and my community.
It will change people's whole life, definitely will.
And if you or someone you know is struggling with domestic violence, help is out there. We have that hotline and information to resources on our website, fox5atlanta.com. And Georgia's new law, similar to a handful of laws in only a few states, including New York's law, California law, could help survivors like Cassie Ventura get some recognition and really try to, stop the stigma around survivors of domestic violence who take action just to save themselves.
Yeah, I would imagine that a lot of women who are currently incarcerated that might fall into one of these categories might be contacting their legal team to try and get an appeal. Would that be the process?
Absolutely. That's the next step that the Women on the Rise group here in Georgia is providing all kinds of legal resources, connections for women to get information, get attorneys, and get back in court to say, here's all this new evidence that was never considered before that really could change the outcome of their whole lives.
Well, those couple of women you spoke to said it's too late for us. We've already served our time, but we're so glad that something like this is happening and moving forward for all of those other victims out there.
It really is, and so many women in prison have dealt with abuse. So this has such a great potential for impact.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Alexa, thanks.
Thanks, Alexa.